Bem-vindos, welcome, bom dia. Such a beautiful day, isn't it? Yes, the sun is out. My name is Odette Amarelo, and I am the MC for this event. We want to welcome all of you with open arms and, trust me, great enthusiasm. Again, the sun is shining, and we were able to make this first Poesia a reality. This poetic celebration is a collaboration among many organizations. And guess what? I need my booklet.
I got you. I'm coming fast. There you go.
And so the first group, of course, or the first organization is Fall River. And the second one, let's go through this, okay? Bristol Community College, specifically the Luso Centro, Brown University Department of Portuguese and Brazilian Studies, Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. They do such a tremendous job in putting print together. Fall River Culture Council, Mass Culture Council, Rádio Voz do Imigrante, and UMass Dartmouth Department of Portuguese. And we do have many more thank yous to do. We'll do them later. Okay. We do need to have a very, very special appreciation for Viva Fall River and Newport Poetry. Yes, Viva Fall River. We are grateful for the time that they dedicated and invested to raise the visibility of an engagement with Portuguese poetry and culture in Fall River, and not just in the Greater Fall River area. And to celebrate these contributions, the word literature in which it's so vast. As many literary experts note, the epic Os Lusíadas is comparable to Shakespeare or Homer and other great writers, although the exposure isn't at the same level. And guess what? We want to change that. There are 3 locations for this event, in which right now we are at the Portas da Cidade, the gates, the Monumental João Teixeira de Medeiros, in which we will be getting there, and the final stop will be the Visitor Center. In addition, we have opening and closing receptions with local, of course, you know that, music, okay, with João Silva, and we couldn't finish this without delicious Portuguese food and beverages. At the Visitor Center, okay, there will be various bilingual poetry readings and a presentation by youth poets from Fall River schools. They answered the contest and it was based on teen twin poetry, meaning grades from 6 to 12. And the winners will be reading their poems, and a special presentation will be done by students in grade 5 from Doran Community School, in which is right here. Fall River has much, okay, to be proud and celebrate. Poesia was a missing piece. We hope you will enjoy our first annual Poesia. And guess what? The second one is already programming. It will be in April 2025. Date will be announced this summer. If you need more information, okay, in terms of to register, okay, or to know more information about Viva Fall River, Patty Rigo is right there. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Let's enjoy this great event. The best product that Portugal and Azores exports is us. All of us. I look at some of your faces and I see the picture of the Azores. You are the stars of this poetic celebration. And I say this with a profound feeling of saudade. Now I would like to talk to you about the portas da cidade, the gates. The Honorable Mayor of Ponta Delgada, Mrs. Berta Cabral, knew, and she still knows, that the Azorian immigration is super important na diaspora. She understood the difference that the immigrants make. Specifically, we're talking about Fall River. The Azorian contribution in our area was and is enormous. In 2004, she visited Fall River, met with community people, and with the Honorable Mayor Ed Lambert. At this meeting, she presented her proposal to build a replica of Portas da Cidade, the gates. And I have to tell you, when I say the gates, means nothing to me. I absolutely need to say Portas da Cidade. The original one exists in Ponta Delgada, the capital of the island of São Miguel. An agreement was made to make Ponta Delgada and Fall River sister cities, and to build as Portas da Cidade. In 2005, the Honorable Mayor of Fall River, Mr. Ed Lambert, and the Honorable Mayor of Ponta Delgada, Mrs. Berta Cabral, established Fall River and Ponta Delgada as sister cities. A special ceremony was organized to celebrate the monument and to name the street right there Ponta Delgada Boulevard. At this ceremony, it was absolutely super special for all of us, for the whole community. This locale now, it's super important. The celebrations of the Day of Portugal is done here with incredible artists. The celebrations of the narrow center of the arts, when it's outside, outdoors, part of it is done here. So as you can see, the Portas da Cidade is not just for the Portuguese Azorian community. It's for the entire community. So now at this moment, I would like to call upon, Carlos Almeida. He is a Portuguese professor at Bristol Community College, but I believe the most important thing is the director of the Luso Center at Bristol Community College, and he will address the Portuguese Azorian immigration in Fall River. Obrigada, Carlos.
Obrigada, professora Odete Amarelo. Bom dia.
Bom dia.
Good morning. First, I would like to thank Viva Fall River, the person of Patty Rigo, for Viva Fall River, Newport Poetry, and the city of Fall River for inviting me as the director of the Luso Centro at Bristol Community College to be part of this first annual Poesia, a celebration of Portuguese poetry, culture, and Fall River poets. The Luso Centro is a language and cultural center designed to strengthen understanding and knowledge of the Portuguese-speaking communities. Luso Centro's mission is to educate Bristol Community College community to serve the wide needs of the Portuguese-speaking families, both recent and generational. Every year, Luso Centro promotes a cultural series that culminates with the celebration of the World Portuguese Language Day, Dia Mundial da Língua Portuguesa, which this year will be celebrated on Thursday, May 2nd, from 9 to 12 p.m. in the Fall River campus. Generally, the Luso Centro promotes the events and bring the community to campus. Of course, this event, as part of the Luso Centro comes to the community, and we are honored to be invited to participate. We bring more than 300 high school students from who studies Portuguese in high schools in Massachusetts and some in Rhode Island to celebrate the World Portuguese language with us. Of course, we will have music and Portuguese and Brazilian treats. So you are all invited to come on May 2nd, Thursday, May 2nd. We will have some good things for you. I have some flyers here. Whoever is interested, I will give more information about it. Now, turning to talking about the Portuguese diaspora, which is a very broad term, and I would need much more than 10 minutes to expand on that. As such, I will just give uma pincelada about the Portuguese immigration in Fall River and New Bedford, which comprises mostly with people from the Azores Islands and Madeira. Now, in talking about Portuguese in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, Glaucia Silva, professor at UMass Dartmouth, states, and I'll quote, "Walking around in parts of New Bedford and Fall River in the US state of Massachusetts, one would be forgiven for thinking that this is a Portuguese-speaking region, except that it is. One can easily order a meal at Antonio's in New Bedford or at Portas da Cidade in Fall River, and even negotiate with the server something that is not on the menu, all in Portuguese. Browse the wines at Portugalia in Fall River, and soon an employee will ask if you need help choosing one, and help will be offered in Portuguese if you happen to be chatting with your companion in that language, or both in English and in Portuguese if the employee is unsure of which language to use. Walk into Costa's fish market and order salmão ou garoupa. Go to Padaria Nova and buy some delicious pão de centeio. Wander into Sunrise Bakery and try some of the best pastéis de nata this side of the Atlantic. Sample mil folhas at Chocolate com Pimenta. Root for Benfica at Casa Benfica. It's not very difficult to live in southeastern Massachusetts and never have to use English, end quote. Furthermore, in New Bedford and Fall River, the largest communities in southeastern Massachusetts, Portuguese may well be second most used language after English, or the first, depending on the business one ventures into. Waves of Portuguese immigration to the region date back to the heyday of the whaling industry in the 19th century. After that, Portuguese immigrants were attracted by employment opportunities in factories in Fall River, New Bedford, and other industrial towns in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The eruption of the Capelinhos volcano on the Azorean island of Fayal in 1957 led the United States to lift existing immigration quotas for Portuguese citizens. As a result, many evacuees came to areas where other Portuguese speakers had settled before them. More immigrants came after the quotas were abolished in 1965. And today, one can attend Catholic Mass in Portuguese in several churches, eat bacalhau à gomes de sá in their favorite Portuguese restaurant, and buy broa and sardinhas in one of the many markets that cater to Portuguese-speaking populations. One of the cultural aspects that ties the Portuguese-speaking communities is their love for sports, in particularly football, or soccer as Americans call it. I still remember in the 1980s and 90s, there was a Luso-American Soccer Association called LASA, where many clubs and associations supported those football teams. By the way, I played for New Bedford Sports Club. Of course, they continue to follow o Campeonato Português de Futebol with passion. Viva o Sporting!
Yeah, they're doing very well.
Yes, and we're gonna be champions this year, for sure. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the many folkloric groups that keep the dances and musical traditions alive on this side of the Atlantic. More and more Portuguese descendants are pursuing higher education, at the same time going back to their roots in learning the language of their parents and grandparents. Many of them are and have been my students. As many of you probably know this joke, I ask on the first day of classes, what is the biggest bridge in the world? And the students ask, after some wild guesses, I declare, it is the Braga Bridge right across, which connects the town of Somerset to Portugal. As Fall River is called Little Portugal, such is the influence of Portuguese in the city. But the Portuguese diaspora does not only celebrate their cuisine, which is great, sports, music, and dance. They also celebrate their literature, and that's what brings us here today to celebrate poetry. And you will be hearing from two of the most influential Portuguese professors and writers in the United States. They are not here. I think they are in the monument and in the visiting center. You're going to meet them if you don't know them yet. Professors Onésimo Almeida and Professor José Francisco Costa. Thank you for listening. Obrigado. Enjoy the day.
Obrigada,
Sorry.
Obrigada. Okay, we're back. We're back, and we would like to hear from the Honorable Mayor, Ed Lambert. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I was talking about Ed Lambert and the Portas da Cidade. I'm so sorry, Mr. Paul Coogan. Come on. Before you arrived, I had to talk about Mr. Ed Lambert. I'm so sorry, Mr. Paul Coogan. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your presence. Appreciate. Yes.
I want to thank Mary Johnson for that lovely introduction. Thank you. No, I want to thank everyone for coming out. It's a beautiful day for some poetry and celebrating the Portuguese culture in Fall River. We have Arbor Day up at Kennedy at 11, but I wanted to make sure I came by and see how this went. Again, thanks for everybody for coming out, and I hope the rest of the event goes well. I'm going to stay for a while and see how this plays out. But thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Paul Coogan. Now we are going to hear, poetry. And we have, a poem that is going to be read by Irene Amaral. And I am so sorry just to treat all of you by your first names. All of these presenters have PhDs. All of these presenters have done so much hard work, So Irene is responsible, for the management of the Casa da Saudade. Casa da Saudade is the Portuguese library that has just fabulous books, children's books and Portuguese books. It's just heaven to go there. And have Irene there, it's just magnificent because she has so much knowledge. She's going to read, a poem from El Rochereau. And welcome, Irene. Do you have the poem with you? I hope so. Come on. Please adjust the microphone.
Thank you for that. Thank you. The poem is Streets of Fall River by Al Rochereau. This city opens to the darkened east in granite and somnolence, the dawn behind it, sloping its tenements to the green bridge, inviting Providence through Swansea, coughing itself awake, clearing an everyday Blair with coffee and cream cakes at the Terminal Bakery on South Main Street, a little before 7. It is freezing in February. The variety stores open, clutching bundles of the Herald News, reshuffling their sundries down to the last can and candy bar you can find on the next block, too. These neat squares of Fall River, 100 of them, same citadels beyond their secondary century, rise like afterthoughts. They have seen such birth and love, fight, indifference, dying. They are the same houses, housing the same names. Sousa, Sunason, Charette, that pass their generations under new coats of paint or aluminium siding, permanent as persistence, still trying. In the old days, the neighborhoods were parochial, hard in their nationality. Parks had their bronze heroes, churches saints, prayed to in French, Portuguese, Polish. Their masses fed only familiar tongues between the Latin. No, they don't assume so much as a grandmother's stare when they court and marry. Their bloods and festivals mix and carry them together like fitted rocks off Rock Street, bound with trolley tracks in a calendar's concrete of chimed existence, until, or if they crack like any other coupling, to tears and reminiscence. This town was a cotton weave, a sewing machine, the coat hanger of a nation. Lizzie Borden walked its ways, the lonely figure of acquittal, her lingering off-put smile printed on t-shirts You can visit the murder site just down 2nd Street from Middle. Maine came together at Pleasant, at the Art of Things. The garish lemon of the Lloyd sign you could see, farther than you could walk. The buses lined up. McQuarries and Cherries swung their furs and hat boxes in promenade. Italian singers played the Durfee, soft. The silver-belled walks so swelled at Christmas, stripped in the 70s for an inside mall, for one closing after another. Woolworth's Newberries, a mother with child by the end, all lost, all of them lost. But the city goes on. The river clings to the battleship. Neath the bridge, considers eyes for water. Cars cross over to a pink east of New Bedford, toward the empty Cape. Through the day, commerce, an economy of days. Through the night, early night, the deckers and condos quietly fill. The streets become a movie set waiting for scenes. 90,000 hive and sleep, 3 floored, 3 deep. They are good people. They work hard, they laugh, at hot times weep. I come here as I can from far away, feeling the drifter returning to monuments, to some common, holy, or likely wholly lost sense of all I see, what I was and where I came from, the everything I fear I know too well, and yet too often all I wish to be.
Thank you. Obrigada, Irene. Obrigada. Okay, and we are going to conclude this. We are going to walk in pilgrimage to pay homage to João Teixeira de Medeiros, or Teixeirinha, as the French called him. He is such a special poet in the Portuguese culture, especially in Fall River. So let's all walk. We are back, alive and well, with beautiful sunshine, okay? And with one of my favorite people, the stars of the poetic, okay, event today, this celebration. And behind me, my very special Teixeirinha. Ah, meu Deus. So, to open for the second place, second locale of the Poesia is going to be Professor Onésimo Almeida. And there is no one better than Professor Onésimo to come and talk about João Teixeira de Medeiros. It is, Onésimo.
Good morning. First of all, apologies for not being there. I was at home and obey my wife. When I get out, I obey women. She told me, report here at 10:15 so we can go over the places. So we were here and you guys were there. You say, it wasn't the program. The week has been so busy that I did not read the program. So I came here and I was told, you do this and this and this, so apologies. It's a pleasure to have, to be back here. I'll tell you a little brief story of how this happened. First of all, a few things about João Teixeira de Medeiros. He was born in Fall River, 1901, and when he was 9, his parents returned to São Miguel. He went to Nordeste, the easternmost part of the island, a very small town. And but then when he was 14, he went to Ponta Delgada to try to find work, and he worked for a family doing all sorts of a handy boy, things didn't go very well. But while there, he completed 2 years of education, so he got up to the 6th grade, and at that time it was good enough to get some jobs in some some job that required people who knew how to write and write well, and so he got a job, and there was an opening in the town of Nordeste, so he went back, but he qualified, but he could not get the job because he was not a Portuguese citizen. Incredible, but that's how it was in those times. So, but when he was 29, he came to the US, and he lived in Fall River, in his hometown, until he died in 1995. He was 94. How did I hear about him? In 1966, the Christmas edition of Açores, a newspaper in São Miguel, where I was a regular contributor, there was some poem by him. Then here in Fall River, in the late 70s, I heard of from Senhor Garcia Casaluso. He told me about this poet, and so through him I met João Teixeira Medeiros, and I went to his house, and he started showing me. Once in a while, he would publish something here in the Portuguese Times. And then, but the stuff that he had at home was much better than what was published in Portuguese. Then he later on told me that some of his most daring poems were not liked by the readers. So he said, that was not myself, but these ones I didn't dare to publish. The form was a lot more sophisticated than the usual poems that appeared here. His poems are, most of them, in quatrains. Quatrain seems to be a very easy literary form, but it's not. It's like in English poetry. Whoever does not know the magics, the rhythm, may think that it's a good thing, but it's not. The rhymes also are very complex. When I came to Brown in 1972, we had in Portugal this habit of, in class, you could write quatrains. As here, José Costa with me, we used to trade and pass around, joking about the teacher or whatever. This was a very common thing. So when I came to Brown, I thought I could do this. So the only quatrain I did in English was, I was at Professor Vince Thomas. He was teaching a seminar on Nietzsche, and it was, one afternoon, in the fall, 2 to 4, after eating. He was not very lively, was already old, so he was explaining the Nietzschean concept of the will to power. And the only quatrain I wrote, and does not obeys the Portuguese metrics and the Portuguese rhymes, not the English ones. Basically, I just arrived in the US, so basically I was translating poetry, writing in English Portuguese poetry. So remember, there was Professor Thomas, and he was explaining the will to power, and my quatrain went like this: to explain the will to power, Thomas wants to go so deep that I get, after half hour, a tremendous will to sleep. Anyway, so that was my only. I passed around, nobody laughed. There was no tradition of doing this. Someone told me, we don't do this here. Okay, fine. So, but João Teixeira Medeiros poems. So I took them. At the time, I had started a small press at Brown, and we were going to publish only things in translation. But I was so pleased. I found that his quatrains could be next to the best quatrains of Portuguese tradition, lyrical poetry. And so one day I had a TV program. I still have this bi-weekly program at the Portuguese channel. So I took care of things, and I invited him as my guest. And in the middle of the program, I gave him this book. He had never seen it. His book. So I got permission to publish, but he had no idea what I was going to do with it. So I published Of Time and Myself, is quatrains. The only poem here that is not a quatrain is a very funny. It's hard to translate. It's a different genre that is used when, particularly for humorous poetry, and it's about the arrival of the first car in Nordeste in the 20s. It's a really, if those of you, I can make a PDF and pass around. It's a marvelous, funny piece. Anyway, so after that, then later on, published another book of his poems, because it was a success. And people that came by Brown, lots of writers came, great writers. Virgílio Ferreira took one, was impressed. Saramago was not yet, was not a Nobel Prize yet, but I gave it to him. He liked it so much that he included one of his quatrains in his journal. So it's published, the journal number 3 of his passage of his visit in 1996. And so he quoted one of the quatrains by João Teixeira. So lots of people reacted and wrote about this in Portugal. There was a Lisbon edition of the first book. One is our edition of the first book, but then translating this into English is not easy. You have to have a special taste for it. Anyway, so, but he, humble as he was, he never did anything. Whatever was done, I was the one who was trying to spread the word, etc. So one day, he was already well known, of course, in his hometown. If you go to Nordeste, Ponta do Sossego, and the Belvediers, Ponta do Sossego and Ponta da Madrugada have poems by him. So the town of Nordeste decided to offer a bust of João Teixeira to the city of Fall River. So the mayor called here, so someone called me at Brown. So what are we going to do with this bust? So we met with the mayor, Ed Lambert, and his team, a few people from Portuguese, Frank Cabral from Sir Jobs. And what are we going to do with this? A room? No, it's not. It should be in a public place. Well, it was going to be Columbia Street. There's a corner there. I'm not going to compete with Cardinal Medeiros or else. No. I said, the Heritage Park is the place to go. Okay, fine, but where? So I came here, looked around, and I said, this is going to be the place. So it's going to be here. So now what are you going to do with this? So he says, well, we have to find a setting. So I designed this. I drafted, and then it was then to the architects. But basically what they did was they made this decent, but the idea was an open book. I selected a poem. George Monteiro, my great friend at Brown in the English department of Portuguese descent, translated, did not want his name there. He says, no, don't include my name there. So this was, and then we had a huge ceremony here with people at the inauguration. There were, I would say 150 people here at least were present. So Mayor Lambert, then we had to raise funds, and we needed, the calculator, we needed about 100,000. And at that time was, we did the 5 cents bank, Mr. Feria, and then we went to Portugal, here the community, lots of people, organizations, and he was loved by everybody. He had been on television a few times. He was a very, very humble man, very, very humble. So it was very easy to raise the 100. And the big question was, and then what's going to happen was, well, we left some $20,000 after this was done to be there. And one day, Frank Cabral said, he was the treasurer. He said, nobody cares about this stuff. So they gave, I don't remember. We all signed it, went to some organization, a philanthropic organization. And because someone said, well, the city is taking care of it. Okay, fine. So some organization received the leftover money. And as you see, the monument is very nicely kept in this great environment. What João Teixeira never dreamed of is that one day people like Francine and Patty will come up with this idea of a Portuguese poetry day. And I am from the time where speaking Portuguese, I was speaking on Solomon Street across from the Academy building in Portuguese with a friend. And he told me, lower your voice so they don't notice we are Portuguese. So that's how far we have come. So it's great pleasure. Thanks for doing all this. And now let us hear some poetry by João Teixeira in Portuguese and in English. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I took long, when you don't write this happens. You start talking.
Yes, now we do have, to present it in English, it's going to be Scott Edward Anderson, and to present in Portuguese will be José Francisco Costa. Yes, Scott, it's all yours.
Okay. Past, present, and future. Time, forever in its flow, is as current rushing fast, such that the future is now and now already the past. In its uncertain come and go, does the world's living lie? For the future is all aglow, only in the present to die.
Passado, presente e futuro. Passa o tempo eternamente, mas passa tão apressado que o futuro é já presente e o presente é já passado. Neste vai-vem inseguro vai vivendo toda a gente à espera do futuro para morrer no presente.
And the other poem appears below. Neither boy or child am I, now narrowing in on my death, but ashes of a hopeful breath that within me did die.
Sou, não sou. Não sou moço nem criança, já vou tocando no fim. Sou cinza de uma esperança que morreu dentro de mim.
Well, with this in mind, thank you so much. Obrigada, Professor Onésimo. Obrigada, Professor José Costa. And obrigada, Scott. Okay. And now we are going to walk to the visitor center. Okay. When we were at the Portas da Cidade, I said that we were going to walk in a pilgrimage, okay, to pay homage to João Teixeira. Now we're walking to the visitor center, okay, to celebrate Poesia.
My name is Jim Lopes. I'm the Visitor Services Supervisor here at Fall River Heritage State Park. I want to welcome you all. I don't know if you're familiar with the Heritage Park system in the Department of Conservation and Recreation State of Massachusetts, but back in 1985, the state decided to recognize all of its post-industrial cities like Fall River and Gardner and Lowell, and all of them with the heritage parks that are intended to celebrate the history and culture of the people who made the city. So of course, in Fall River, you cannot celebrate Fall River without celebrating the Portuguese. So, my mission as Visitor Services Supervisor is to offer programming throughout the year that explores the cultures. So we've done Portuguese exhibits here, we've done French Canadian, everybody has had an exhibit here. Now, I don't know if you saw my brochure out there in the park. It's called Hard Work, People, Ambition, and Hard Work. Who's who at Fall River Heritage State Park? Please, pick up one of these, because the second person mentioned here isn't the second. We mentioned Thomas Hudner, the one the building's named after. We mentioned Robert Correa. And in the fact, João Teixeira de Medeiros. We talked about the monument, okay? We recorded this in a brochure, walking brochure of the park, with all the significant people in the park that's named after. Now, I just want to share with you, when I started here back in 2017, this monument did not look the way it looks now. So 2018, I talked to DCR in the park about reinvigorating the monument. And I went through the papers and I found some references to the Prince Henry Society. We invited the Prince Henry Society in, and they were wonderful. They power washed the monument, they cleaned it, they polished it. They did a terrific job. On the last day that they were working there, they asked me what I thought of it. And I said, great job, but I think we could use some hydrangeas. And he said, you realize that all of this was free. I said, and if the hydrangeas are free, that's even better. So that's how we got those hydrangeas. Some of them we lost over the years, and the Creative Arts Network has replaced some of them. In fact, we saw some empty spaces out there. They would replace in the next couple of weeks with new hydrangeas out there. Because we love that. It's a gathering place for people. A lot of different organizations have talked about having poetry readings there, and finally somebody did. And I got to tell you too, it's one of the best places to watch the fireworks in the summertime. You know, it's standing room only. People, families reserve that space to sit there and watch the fireworks. What's better than fireworks over a Portuguese monument in Fall River? So, without further ado, I will open the program. I'm delighted to do this. This is great. I scored major points with PCR. It's all about me. So I am going to introduce to you, it's Professor Odette. Am I wrong? I'm right.
Odette Barel.
Professor.
Professor.
Odette Amarella.
Thank you, sir.
You can hold it or you can put it on stand.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, sir. Appreciate so much. Yes, bravo, bravo. Yeah, he has been very good to us, so to accommodate all our requests. So that has been very good. So far, this has been absolutely magnificent. This is the first one, the first Poesia and came reality. This is absolutely great to have us here. And as I said, at Portas da Cidade, with profound saudade, I see the Azores on your faces. Yeah. And so you are the stars of this event. This is absolutely great. It is so wonderful that we have the ancestors that did what they did for us to have a life the way we are having right now. So now we need to leave, another path for the future, for the young people that are here, so that we can have a path to celebrate. So now we are going to continue. By the way, I think I needed to tell you this joke. It's not because Professor Onesimus is here, but I need to say this. You will appreciate this. So I teach early college at Bristol Community College. So when April the 25th was just this Thursday. And so I was sharing with the students my memories about, the revolution. And I did say, guess what? It was 50 years ago. One of the students looked at me and said, "Holy crap, Professora, you remember everything that happened 50 years ago?" So that's delicious. This is why I'm still teaching. It is absolutely delicious to teach them. And of course, after that, they had a discussion. One said to this one, "Well, she read, don't you know? She read all the information. This is what she knows." All right, so now we are going to continue our poetry reading. And this time, we have Scott Edward Anderson that will read from his books, Wild Dark Sea. And it was published by Shanty Arts Publishing and Azorian Sweet Azorian. Scott, it's all yours.
I don't know if I need the podium. No, I'm going to use the podium. So I'll move over here. So you may be asking yourself, Scott Edward Anderson, that doesn't sound like a very Portuguese name. It's not. It was my father's family's name was Anderson. He's proclaimed to be Scottish for most of his life, but after he died, I found out that he was actually 3 parts Irish and 1 part Scottish. So, but on my mother's side, that's where the Portuguese came from. Her grandparents emigrated from the Azores in 1906 and settled in Fox Point. They would reach Kitchikiu from Foz de Cima and San Miguel. And just to show you what's closest to my heart,
That was not on the
So, Jose, you're coming up. Yes, we're going to read together. So, I'm going to read a portion of my book, Azorian Sweetness. It's a very special book to me because it was published by Letras Lage on the San Miguel and in 2020. And it was the first bit of writing that I did about rediscovering my Portuguese heritage, my Azorian heritage. And I've done a lot of research about my great-grandparents, and I went to the Azores finally the first time in 2018, so it was a revelation to me. And to have this book published bilingually, Jose Francisco Costa did some initial translation, and Edward Pinto and I worked on the final version of the book. And so we're going to read, I'll read in English, and then Jose will read in Portuguese, I think. And then, we'll do a little bit of, and then we can do a little bit of from Wine Dark Sea. I should say that I do have some copies of the books for sale because that's what we do as writers. We have to sell our books. We become salesmen. This book is also available. The only place it's available in the U.S. other than for me is at New Bedford Whaling Museum, where they have copies of the book. So, all right, let's see if I can do this. Well, okay. So this is the first section of Azorian Suite. The poem is in sections and following the format of a suite. The sea surrounds, is ever present, endless. The sea surrounds and sea sounds swirl and sway. Humid torpor of temperament. Fog enshrouds, clouds caught on peaks, wrapping the mountain. A helmet of white, gray ash. The ever-present volcanoes. Threat of fire and destruction. Threat of sea, wind, and wave. Thread of saudade woven into the fabric of all life on the islands. Saudades for the land enshrouds the land, enshrouds the islanders surrounded by sea. This is the tricky part. San Miguel, island of my ancestors, who settled here in the original waves, 1450s or earlier, as far as I can tell. From the Alentejo they came, encouraged or escaping, I know not. San Miguel, the green island, jewel in the bracelet of archipelago, formed by two volcanoes reaching for each other, a chain of eruptions enclosing the space between them. Populated like that chain, scattered by wind and sea, until 1906, when my great-grandparents left for America, scattered across the sea. My return, over a century later, fills me with mixed emotions. Have I come home, or simply returned to recover a lost heritage, something denied to me by my grandfather's willingness to forget the past, to relinquish the saudades da terra, so much a part of the Azorian character? The phrase can mean longing for the land, or I miss the earth, which seems so necessary now, with the threat of climate change added to the island condition. Sea surge from Hurricane Lorenzo overflowing onto the low-lying streets at sea's edge. Salt water burning the wine grapes, flooding the edge of the villages. How high will the sea rise in the next century? How will the islanders survive? What becomes of Saudade da Terra when this land is swallowed by sea? Is the island a cloud, or is the cloud an island? Horizon of salt, rim of insular identity. Eternal horizon, damp, steady monotony of sea. Mist entering bones, the Azorian torpor. The sea makes dreamers of men, saddening and depressing them with its monotony. Green land, gray blue sky, muted and humid. Our roots are within these mountains of lava. Raging winds, reckless rains, voracious sea, that renders an island an island. Sea that is not wine dark, more like wet slate or the undulating back of a crocodile's scales. moving slowly yet deliberately towards its prey. Sea monster of melancholy.
O mar cerca é contínua presença infinita. O mar cerca e os sonhos do mar rodopiam e afastam-se. Úmido do pôr do ser, nevoeiro mortalha encobre nuvens presas nos cimos, envolvendo a montanha. Um capacete de branco apaga a cinza. A inescapável presença dos vulcões, ameaça de fogo e destruição, ameaça do vento, do mar e vaga, fio de saudade, mordido no tecido da vida inteira das ilhas, saudades da terra. Envolve a terra, envolve os ilhéus, cercados por mar. São Miguel, ilha dos meus antepassados que aqui fizeram morada nas ondas originais, 1450 ou antes, tanto não sei. O Alentejo vieram, incentivados ou fugidos, não sei. São Miguel, a Ilha Verde, joia da pulseira do arquipélago formada por 2 vulcões. Num encalce mútuo, corrente de erupções, estreitando o espaço entre eles, povoado numa tal corrente, espalhado pelo vento e mar, até 1906, quando os meus bisavós partiram no encalce da América, espalhados por toda a extensão do mar. O meu regresso, um século depois, enche-se de múltiplas emoções. Terei regressado a casa, ou voltei apenas para reclamar uma herança perdida, algo que me foi negado. Pela vontade dos meus avós, esquecer o passado, renunciar às saudades da terra, parte tão importante do ser açoriano. A frase significa estar ansioso pela terra como sinto falta da terra. O que hoje parece ser tão necessário com a ameaça das alterações climáticas de somar à condição de seria. Gigantescas marés provocadas pelo furacão Lourenço, inundando as ruas baixas à beira do mar. Água salgada queimando as vinhas, inundando os limites das freguesias. Até onde subirá o mar no próximo século? Como irão sobreviver os ilhéus? Que restará de saudades da terra? Quando a terra for engolida pelo mar? A ilha é a nuvem, ou a nuvem a ilha? Horizonte de sal, borda de identidade insular. Horizonte eterno, úmido, monotonia constante do mar. A neblina penetra os ossos do povo açoriano. O mar que faz sonhadores de homens, entristecendo-os, deprimindo-os com sua monotonia, terra verde, céu azul cinza, silenciado e imundo, as nossas raízes estão por dentro. Estas montanhas de lava, ventos furiosos, chuvas imprudentes, mar voraz, que torna uma ilha, mar que não é vinho escuro, parecidas com a ardósia molhada ou as costas ondulantes e escamosas de um crocodilo, movendo-se lenta, mas deliberadamente para a sua presa. Monstro marinho da melancolia.
It sounds so beautiful in that language. So I'm going to read a few poems from Wine Dark Sea, which is my latest book. And again, we'll do a back and forth with the languages. Should we do it like I'll read it and then read it? Yeah. Okay. So this is a poem called "A Longing Found." You can see that longing and saudade. It's, I always wondered like why did I have this feeling that I had, and now I understand. It's in my DNA. So you always wonder why do you feel the way you feel? Well, it's because of who you are, and if you don't know who you are, then you're longing for it. And that's how I spent most of my life until I was like 56 years old. That's when I finally went to the source. I was like, oh, I get it. So, a longing found. Too long I lived in darkness, a shadow man living a shadow life. Now I want a real love, a longing found after too long, looking in all the wrong places. I want one authentic heart, speaking to me, revealing secrets inside of me. She who, when I touch her, opens to me in a way that only she can. And I respond as if playing a musical instrument I have always known how to play.
Um anseio de encontrar. Vivi demasiado tempo na escuridão. Homem sombra, vivendo uma vida de sombra. Agora, quero um amor verdadeiro. Anseio de encontrá-lo após demasiado tempo, procurando em todos os lugares errados. Eu quero um coração autêntico, falando comigo, revelando segredos dentro de mim. Quero aquela que, quando por mim tocada, se abre como só ela sabe. E eu respondo como se estivesse a tocar um instrumento musical que eu sempre soube tocar.
I should mention that these translations were done by Leonor Sampaio Silva. She's a professor at the University of the Azores. For a couple of years ago when we did a launch for these two books after the pandemic. And so I want to acknowledge her and also to thank Francine and the other organizers and for Mayo Pedrinho, who conscripted me to come and speak. This next poem is the first poem, so I should explain a little bit. My great-grandparents came here in 1906, and then their son, my grandfather, was born in Providence in 1915. And like many in his generation, he did not want to be Portuguese. He didn't want to have anything to do with the old country. He only spoke Portuguese with his parents, and he went by the name Ed Perry, rather than Edward Castillo. And he made a good life for himself as an insurance salesman and as the head of the Rhode Island Golf Association for 33 years. And towards the end of his life, unbeknownst to me, it was about to be the end of his life, we had a birthday party for him, his 78th birthday, in September of 1993. And at that point, I had discovered my Portuguese heritage, but I didn't know anything about it. So I wanted to go to him directly and ask him for the family history. So I started to learn a little bit of Portuguese. It was Brazilian Portuguese. That was the only feature I could find in the tapes and everything else. And I went up to him and I spoke to him in Portuguese at this birthday party. And he was kind of taken aback because nobody had spoken to him in Portuguese. So his parents had been dead for 20 years by then. And then I could tell that I touched his heart with that approach. And I convinced him to sit down and write the family history. But I left it to my aunt to sit him down and do it because I had my own life and I had to leave the party. Then he died before he could share the family history. And I didn't realize he had been very, very ill. That's why we were having a 78th birthday party instead of an 80th birthday party because he wasn't going to live to do that. So this poem I wrote with that first glimpse of longing and first glimpse of saudade that I was feeling in 1994. Also when I met the poet Nuno Judic, who just passed away, so I want to dedicate this reading to him as well. He was a dear friend and really an inspiration to me. This is called Saudade, and it has an epigraph from Fernando Pessoa. I feel beliefs that I do not hold. I am ravished by passions I repudiate. Saudade. We're surrounded by people who sentimentalize collegiate life, swoon over first marriages, or live in days gone by. The Portuguese have a word for it, saudade, a longing for lost things. For myself, I have fond memories of houses in New England, where my childhood blossomed, disappeared, of a life of the mind. But what I long for is the old cherry tree in front of our home. We were newlywed, how it dashed its branches against our roof.
Saudade, uma pessoa sinto crenças que não tem e levam-se ânsias que reduziam. Estamos rodeados de pessoas que sentimentalizam a vida colegial, desmaiam com os primeiros casamentos, revivem em dias passados. Os portugueses têm uma palavra para isso: saudade. Um anseio por coisas perdidas. Para mim, tenho memórias agradáveis de casas na Nova Inglaterra, da minha infância debruxou e desapareceu, de uma vida da mente. Mas o que eu anseio é a velha sacheira, é a frente da nossa casa. Éramos recém-casados. Como desfez os seus ramos contra o nosso piano.
This is a poem called Passion. Devoid of passion, life's a mockery, really. Like Shackleton's crew, deprived of carbohydrates, surviving only on seal meat and penguin, those many months shipwrecked in their quest for crossing over the frozen continent. Yet we swim in it every day. Hours drag, no one breathes or forgets to breathe. The net drags the unfrozen river, but the bodies are cold, cold. Are they frozen? Are we frozen? We fall on our assets as the fortunes fall. We remain timid, perhaps a little gun-shy. Opportunities are lost at every turn. We cannot dive in for fear of getting what? Caught in the ice, a broken leg or heart. The fracture will only set if you let go. Thaw comes only with friction. What exactly are you waiting for? Action is the basis of success. As for passion, it can't be reasoned, only negotiated. I'm digging in my heels. Think there may be a wire coming across explaining. Only no one knows the sender. Listen, listen, listen!
Paixão. Desprovida de paixão, a vida é um escárnio, na verdade. Como a tripulação do Captain, privada de hidratos de carbono, sobrevivendo apenas com carne de foca e pinguim, todos aqueles meses naufragados na sua busca de atravessar o continente gelado. No entanto, nadamos nele todos os dias. As horas arrastam. Ninguém respira ou esquece de respirar. A rede arrasta o rio descongelado, mas os corpos são frios, frios. Estão congelados. Estamos congelados. Caímos sobre os nossos bens à medida que as fortunas caem. Permanecemos tímidos, talvez um pouco tímidos de armas. As oportunidades são perdidas a cada curva. Não podemos mergulhar por medo de ficar o quê? Banhado no escuro. De uma perna o coração partidos. Fratura só se define se soltar. O descongelamento vem apenas com fricção. O que está à espera exatamente? A ação é a base do sucesso. Quanto à paixão, não pode ser fundamentada, apenas negociada. Estou a escavar das minhas culturas. Penso que pode haver um aranho a chegar explicando. Só que ninguém conhece o outro. Escuta. Escuta. Escuta.
more, and then I want to read a couple of translations. This is called The Other Half of the Sky, and this was written for the International Day of Women a few years ago. My publisher, Letter Sauvage, asked for all its authors to submit a poem or something for publication. So I decided to try to write a poem in Portuguese, which I'd never done before, and then translate it to English and see how that would be. So maybe you should read the Portuguese first, and then I'll read. Yeah.
So, here is such poem in Portuguese. A outra metade do céu, seja cinzento, coberto de nuvens ou azul de safira claro, abraçado pelos dedos cor-de-rosa de Adão, ou em chamas com o sol ardente a pôr-se, espelhado no mar ao longo de uma costa rochosa, ou contrastantes no seu brilhantismo, a outra metade do céu lidera com empatia e graça, sempre crescendo, mudando, desafiando ela própria e os outros que a odeiam. Se conseguir acompanhá-lo, um papagaio no ar, derrulando-se no seu vento, estás na boleia da tua vida. Se conseguires apanhá-lo, uma borboleta a lançar flor a flor, deves largar a sua preciosa vida.
How was it, okay?
Yeah. I like it.
Maybe. There's a couple things I've probably changed now. Not anymore. Anyway, it's called in English, The Other Half of the Sky. Whether gray, cloud covered, or sapphire clear blue, embraced by the rosy fingers of dawn, or ablaze with a fiery sun going down, mirrored in the sea along a rocky shore, or contrasting in her brilliance, the other half of the sky leads with empathy and grace, always growing, changing, challenging herself and those others around her. If you can keep up with her, a kite aloft, fluttering in her wing, you are in for the ride of your life. If you can catch her, a butterfly dancing, flower to flower, you must let go of her precious life. Do we have time for? Oh, we have time for a couple of translations. Okay, so I've been translating. Well, this goes back a while. So I was trying to. I was doing some research for what became a story in Suite, but also a nonfiction book about my rediscovery of my Portuguese roots. And I was trying to read as much as I could to understand the Azorian character. I started with some of Onesimo's writings from the early 80s, where he was explaining the Azorian character for school teachers in the public school system. And but then I branched out into Portuguese literature, and it was especially Vitorino Onesimo, who's become both an inspiration and a nemesis of sorts, given his name that's appropriate. So I started translating. So I wanted to read. I was starting to read his book, Corsário das Ilhas, which is a travel log he wrote returning when he was living on the mainland. He returned to the islands, and I was reading it in Portuguese, trying to understand it. And I wrote to Onesimo and I said, "Is this book available in English? Has anybody ever translated it?" And he said, "No. Would you like to try?" A blessing and a curse. But so I started with the poetry because for me, learning a language, trying to learn a language, I always turn to the poetry because the poets speak the language in its most concise form. And so, as a poet, I understand what goes on in a poem and what's happening in the structure, and that can help me understand the language better. So, I started translating some of Onesimo's poems, And here's one. It's called The Shell in English. My house is a shell. Like the mollusks, I patiently secreted it from me. Title facade, a dream and waste. The garden and the walls are only sand and absence. My house is me and my whims, pride laden with innocence. If sometimes you have a balcony, you win. The salt that crumbles the saints in their niches, and glass roofs and fragile staircases, ivy covered, oh fake bronze, fireplaces open to the wind, the room's cold. My house, but that's another story. It's me in the wind and the rain, here barefoot, sitting on a stone of memory.
A concha. A minha casa é concha, como os bichos, segreguei de mim com paciência. Rascado de marés, ações e lixos, o horto e os muros, só areia e ausência. Minha casa sou eu e os meus caprichos. O orgulho carregado de inocência, se às vezes dá uma varanda, vence o sal que os santos poluam nos riscos. E telhados de vidro, e escadarias frágeis, cobertas de era, ó bronze falso, lareira aberta ao vento, as salas frias, a minha casa. Mas é outra história. Sou eu ao vento e à chuva, aqui descalço, sentado numa pedra da memória.
I took some liberties there with I used mollusks instead because what he was describing was more specific, that the secretion of the house from the self is what the mollusk does. So builds a shell around it. Anyway, this is the choices the translator has to make. This is called Ship. So, my flesh is sore from the landing of some birds. I don't know where they're from. I only know that they, like life, sting in my heart. When they come softly. Leaving, they go so heavy. How I like to be here at my window, giving my mind over to the birds. I'm looking at the sea. Look at that aimless ship, and seeing it, give it a lamp. Or my sad eyelashes. The bird and the ship, in a nutshell, here at my window.
Navio. Tenho a carne dormida de pousado nas árvores, que não sei de onde são, só sei que gosto de ti. Picada em meu coração. Onde vem suaves, partindo do tambor da verão, como eu gosto de estar aqui na minha janela, a dar miolhos às árvores. Ponho-me a olhar para o mar. Olha-me o navio, céu, e de vê-lo, dá-lhe uma vela, que sejam meus cílios tristes. A ave e a nave eram o sul, aqui na minha janela.
Excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to read a poem about the 25th of April, which, as we just heard, was Thursday, by Sophia Danilo Anderson, not Anderson, but Anderson. Her family came, I think, from Sweden. Denmark. 25th of April. This is the dawn I expected. The first day, whole and clean, where we emerge from the night and the silence. And free, we inhabit the substance of time.
25 de abril. Esta é a madrugada que eu esperava, no dia inicial inteiro e lindo, onde imaginamos a noite e o silêncio, e livres habitamos a substância do tempo.
Okay, and to finish, this was the first poem I ever translated from Portuguese by Fernando Pessoa, writing as Alberto Cairo. He had a whole bunch of heteronyms, basically pseudonyms that had more than just fabrication. He had an entire life. He did astrology charts for each of these names that he was writing under, and so they were distinct personalities from him. He's called Only Nature is Divine, and She is Not Divine. If I speak of her as of an entity, it is, for to speak of her, it is necessary to use the language of men, which gives personality to things, and imposes names on things. But things have neither name nor personality. They exist, just as the sky is big and the land is wide, and our hearts are the size of a closed fist. I am blessed by everything as far as I know. That is all I truly am. I enjoy everything as one who is here in the sun.
Só a natureza divina. E ela não é divina. Se às vezes falo dela como de um ente, é que para falar dela preciso usar a linguagem dos homens, que dá personalidade às coisas e impõe nome às coisas. Mas as coisas não têm nome nem personalidade. Existem. E o céu é grande e a terra é larga e o nosso coração do tamanho de um pulo de chave. Bendito seja eu por tudo quanto não sei. É isso tudo que verdadeiramente sou. Gosto de tudo isso, gozo tudo isso com quem está aqui ao sul.
Oh, well, thank you so very much, obrigada, Scott. And I neglected to mention that it was Professor Zé Costa that was going to read in Portuguese. Now we have poetry by Ana Luísa Amaral, 1956-2022, from The Art of Being the Tiger, selected poems translated by Margaret Jo Costa, series editor for US edition, Professor Anna Flabuska, published by Chagas Press. And they will be presented in Portuguese by Professor Anna Flabuska, and from UNES Dortmund, and presented in English by Grace Horan, a candidate at UNES Dortmund. So let's welcome Anna and Grace.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Beth. Thank you very much to the organizers, Francine, and everybody else for including me in this program. It's a very genuine pleasure to be here, and a particularly great pleasure to be able to present some of the poetry of Ana Luísa Amaral, who, aside from being a magnificent poet that I wrote a little bit about, was also a friend, and it's a bittersweet moment because she passed away in 2022 at a still much too young age of 66. We are still, I think, all of her friends and collaborators are still in mourning for her. But I thought it would be an appropriate choice for this program, not only because she's a wonderful poet, but also because he has strong ties to this region going back decades, namely to the early 1990s when she was visiting researcher at Brown University and working on her dissertation, her doctoral dissertation on Emily Dickinson, which she defended at the University of Porto in 1995. I didn't know her then. She had only just begun to publish her poems. Her first book was published in 1990. I discovered it somewhat later, but in later years, I was able to bring her to UMass Dartmouth, where she was a visiting professor for a semester in 2014. And her last visit to this area and also to UMass Dartmouth, I think, was in 2019, when she was on a book tour of the United States, or at least the East Coast, with her wonderful translator, Margaret Jewel Costa, for the launching of this anthology that we published, as well as her volume, What's in the Name, From New Directions, which both came out more or less at the same time. As I already mentioned, she published her first poetry volume in 1990, and then many more followed, as well as a novel, a collection of critical essays, and also many children's books. She had her reputation kept growing steadily, and in the end, she won nearly every literary prize that exists in Portugal, and several international ones, including the most prestigious award of the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking worlds for poetry, the Queen Sophia Ibero-American Poetry Prize. It was a privilege to not only know her, but collaborate with her most on several projects, some academic in nature, because she, in addition to being a very prolific writer, she worked and taught and graded students at the University of Porto, and also led several research projects, in which I was happy to participate. I'm not going to tell you anything specific about her poetry, because I think it speaks for itself, and I hope you will appreciate it as much as I and Grace do. And I also wanted to thank Grace very much for stepping in and reading from the soon-to-be Dr. Grace Holloman. Right now I'm taking her away from finishing the dissertation. Intertextualidades. Microscópica quase, uma migalha entre as folhas de um livro, criando a letra. Emprestaram-me um livro, mas a migalha não. No mistério mais essencial, ela surgiu recatadamente, a meio de 2 parágrafos solenes. Embaraçou-me o pensamento. Quebrou-me um fio, já térreo, de leitura, sedutora, intrigante. Vejo pensar nos níveis que há de ler. O assunto do livro e a migalha, assunto do leitor. Era pão a matéria consumida no meio de 2 parágrafos, e os olhos consumidos. Virar a folha, 2 linhas lidas, a intriga do tempo, quando foi, levantou-se a preparar o pão, voltando a outras linhas. Fiquei com a migalha, desconhecida a oferta do leitor, mas por jogo ou consumo, deixei-lhe uma migalha minha. Não marca de água, mas de pão também. Um tema posterior, a decifrar mais tarde, e posterior leitor alheio.
Intertextualities. Almost microscopic, a crumb left between the pages of a book I happened to be reading. Someone lent me the book, but not the crumb. Shrouded in deepest mystery, it made its first shy appearance between 2 solemn paragraphs. It tangled my thoughts, broke the already tenuous thread of my reading, seductive and intriguing. It made me consider the different levels to be read, the subject of the book and the crumb subject of the reader. Someone had consumed a sandwich in between consuming those 2 paragraphs with their eyes. Turn the page, read 2 lines. The plot thickens. Just when did he or she get up to make a sandwich? before returning to read the next few lines. I was left with the crumb, an unexpected gift from the reader, but as a joke or as a possible snack, I left a crumb of my own, not a watermark, but a bread mark, an alternative theme to be deciphered later at a later reading by someone else.
Coisas gramaticais e outras. A minha filha fala tantas coisas de gramática própria tão brilhante. Mais do que sóis, os verbos que ela conjuga mal são galáxias inteiras. As costumeiras coisas tornam-se espaços largos de saber, didáticas do mundo em construção. Estrelas novas de rota corrigida sem piedade, teimando em serem novas. São tantas coisas que a minha filha fala, brilham sem ver ainda. E não fora a gramática das coisas, não fora o conjugar, mais lógico que o nosso, a semântica intacta torná-la ilha inteira. Ser humano a crescer e solo ainda intacto. I'm so sorry. That's okay.
Grammar and other matters. My daughter says so many things in her own brilliant grammar. The verbs she misconjugates are not so much suns as whole galaxies. The usual commonplaces expand into broad fields of knowledge, manuals for a world still under construction. Determined new stars, setting ruthless new courses. She says so many things, my daughter, and still they shine. Were it not for the grammar of things, were it not for her conjugations, far more logical than ours, her virgin semantics would make her whole, a human being growing in still virgin soil.
A verdade histórica. A minha filha partiu uma tigela de cozinha. E eu que me apetecia escrever sobre o evento, tive que pôr de lado inspiração e lápis, pegar uma vassoura e varrer a cozinha. A cozinha varrida de tigela ficou diferente da cozinha de tigela intacta. Local propício à escavação e estudo, curto mapa arqueológico no futuro remoto. Uma tigela de louça branca com flores, restos de cereais tratados em embalagem estanque espalhados pelo chão. Não eram grãos de trigo de Pompeia, mas eram respeitosos cereais, de qualquer forma. E a tigela, mesmo não sendo da dinastia Ming, mas das Caldas, daqui a 5 ou 10 mil anos devia-se ter a estatuto admirativo. Mas a hecatombe deu-se. E a escorregada de pequeninas mãos ficou esquecida de famas e proveitos, varrida de vassouras e memórias. Por mísero e cruel balde de disco, azul, em plástico moderno, indestrutível.
The historical truth. My daughter broke a bowl in the kitchen. And when I fancied writing a poem about the incident, I had to put aside inspiration and pen, pick up a broom and sweep the kitchen floor. The kitchen swept clean of the broken bowl looked different from the kitchen with the bowl intact, a place ready to be excavated and studied, a brief archaeological map of a remote future. A white china bowl decorated with flowers, the remnants of processed cereal in watertight wrapping scattered on the floor. They weren't grains of wheat from Pompeii, but respectable cereals nonetheless. And the bowl, although not exactly Ming Dynasty, but made in Campos Dahainian, in 5 or 10,000 years should find its own admiring audience. A disaster struck. And having slipped from those small hands, the bowl, achieving neither fame nor advantage, was swept up by brooms and memories into a miserable, cruel, lewd bin in modern, indestructible plastic.
Ecos. voz alta, ensaiei o teu nome. A palavra partiu-se, nem eco ínfimo a especular, quase pouco de motivo. Quase um tempo de vida a dormir a teu lado. Um desapego é isto. Um ego ausente, uma ausência de nome a repetir-se. Saber que nunca mais, reduzida a um canto desta cama larga, um calor sufocante. Em vez, o meu pé esquerdo cruzado do lado esquerdo desta cama. O teu nome no chão, nem de saudades.
Echoes. I tried saying your name out loud, the word broke in two. Not even the faintest echo in this room, almost bare of furniture. Almost a lifetime spent sleeping beside you, and this is all that's left. An absent echo, an absence of name, repeating itself. Knowing that nevermore shrunk into one corner of this wide bed, the suffocating heat. Instead, my left foot slides over to the left side of the bed. Your name lies discarded on the floor, quite empty now of longing.
This next poem requires a brief explanation. It dialogues with a poem by Fernando Pessoa, one of the most famous pieces in his book Mensagem, The Message, in which he imagines Europe as a recumbent female figure supporting herself on her elbows and looking toward the west. The face with which Europe looks to the west is Portugal, Pessoa's vision. Now Luisa Amaral will write in this poem in her Europa, poema 2. Pouco fita a Europa, a não ser mortos por múltiplos disfarces. Única luz, os nomes tão reais, os nomes amontados pelos números, mesas de número fartas. Alguma vez fitou. De que roubos e fúrias que foram as paisagens? E ao assomar de fronte a maior arte sua, sinfonias abertas como nuvens, as cores mais deslumbrantes, rochas pintadas em soberbas linhas, os comoventes traços e palavras. Mesmo de fronte assim, distante e bela, que ventos lhe assomaram os cabelos. Mesmo nesse arrepio novo de um século, que prenúncios doeu. Guerras, destruir-lhe sol e gentes, o brilho azul da lua nas trincheiras, a mais pura impiedade reluzir. Não tem olhos agora de fitar, se alguma vez os teve, perdeu-os noutras guerras. Resta-lhe debater-se como golfinho em dor, preso nas redes. Não tem olhos nem mãos, nem fita nada, agora. Nem cotovelos tem que possam suportar justiça e bondade. E mesmo aqui, se para que olhasse, nada pedia, a não ser outros gritos, sem voz, sem sul, sem a esfinge que deslumbra.
Europe, home too, does not have much to gaze at, only people murdered by multiple disguises, chemical light, blazing fires, names amputated by numbers, tables crammed with numbers. Did she ever see anything? What thefts and furies formed her landscapes? And standing before her finest art, symphonies open as clouds, dazzling colors, rocks painted with exquisite lines, with touching marks and words. Even standing before her, so distant, so beautiful, what winds stirred her hair? Even with the sudden breeze of the new century, what futures did she see? Wars destroying lands and people, the blue light of the moon on the trenches, the purest of impieties gleaming. She has no eyes to see with now, if she ever had. She lost them in other wars. All she can do is struggle like a suffering dolphin trapped in the net. She has no eyes, no hands. Europe sees nothing. She does not even have elbows to hold up justices or goodness. And even here, were she to look over here, she would see nothing. only more screams, no voice, no sound, no dazzling sphinx.
Eletricidade. Uma fachada à torneira, no silêncio, o ruído invasor. Uma gota pequena, regular. Como um prego mental dilacerando, agudo o sono dado. Tortura a memória, o espaçamento de aguardar outra gota. Outro chicote azul da tempestade.
Electricity. The not quite turned off tap, and in the silence, the invasive sound, a drop, small, regular, like a nail in the brain tearing the sharp sound of water, the torture, the memory, the time spent waiting for the next drop, the next blue whiplash in the storm.
And now the last poem, somewhat lighter note, I hope. Incomparáveis receitas. Dizem que não se deve comparar o humano a coisas ou sabores, mas há vinhos do Porto muito velhos que escorrem lentamente pelo copo e mil carícias da cor. E como se ama um vinho muito doce, assim também alguém se pode entretecer de amor. E há depois uns assados muito loucos, de cheiro a escorregar pela cozinha, batatas a ser lado como monjas em preces de capela, e um arroz quase solto, onde cozeu a estrofe do principal. Como há esse, ao produto final entre batata, carne, arroz, assim também alguém se pode devagar descer. E há finalmente o céu, mas no seu romantismo tão cansado, pequeno, diverge do que quero, aliando no sabor. Antes assado, o vinho em cor de sol, ao copiar aqui essa antiga receita para amor.
Incomparable recipes. They say you shouldn't compare humans with things or flavors, but there are venerable port wines that pour slowly into the glass, all caress and color. And just as you can love a very sweet wine like that, so you can also entwine someone with love. And then there are those golden roasts, their aroma filling the kitchen, the potatoes beside them like nuns at prayer in chapel, and a dish of almost fluffy rice cooked along with the main stanza. And just as you can love the final product, potato, meat, and rice, so you can also slowly entwine someone's heart. And finally, there's heaven, but its romanticism is so old hat, and it's so small too, and not what I want, not flavorful enough. I'd rather have a good roast or a wine, the color of the sun, to copying out here that old recipe for love.
Obrigada, Ana. Obrigada, Grace. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely. Thank you for your voices. And now, yes, we do need a 10-minute break. I'm serious, 10 minutes. Notice they had 2 weeks to write, okay, the poetry. And the poems, the theme was Fall River. And we had 107 students writing the poems. It was absolutely wonderful. We even had classrooms, okay? The teacher said, that's all right, okay? And it was such a good project. And, but possible to be here were only 4, and we have 1 in video. So what I would like you to do is come to the microphone, introduce yourselves, tell us what grade level are you, okay? And what school? Yeah. Is it so low for you? See, I am under tall.
I'm Marie, I'm from Fall River Daycare Home, and I'm in 9th grade.
From what school?
Fall River Daycare Home.
Yeah.
To enter Fall River, I feel a fresh start. My journey begins as I glide through the dark. With unknown sights and unknown hearts, maybe this could be my new and fresh start. The Battleship Cove showed more than just ships. It showed the strength in veterans. It showed more than any lips. It said more than any lips. With the Lizzie Borden mystery, the secrets lie within, all the recorded history of when the trials did begin. Welcome to Fall River, with historical sites and figures. We'll try, said the residents, because my fresh start is now delivered. Thank you.
I'm Camilla Soares, and I'm in 8th grade from Henry Ward. Her spiked churches and crimson chains are crowned upon her head, where the sun pushes her slightly new under the arches where the warm breeze easily lays down. Where diversity lies in the locally possible subjects, whose heads she caught the holding high. Her history is not forgotten, but complex. Oh, how we honor her, never forget her, and never truly say goodbye. For many, a first home, others stand a chance. When the wilderness made a trail, she stood with open hand, arms and hands. Pouring life and culture into every word she sings, each verse the Christ season stands. From Portuguese vines to colorful flower stems growing deep within her soil, built on the backs of those who found her, she spread her wings and continued to grow. She holds a piece of all of us, and she is just as broken. When days were weary and quiet, her wings carried her weight on others. She taught us to stand proud no matter what behind her backs others have spoken. To repay her legacy, we all continue to build her. She will always be a timeless monk when overflowing the Lord ecstasy. Viva Fall River.
My name is Zaxady Morales. I am from John Day Norrie, and I am in 7th grade. A dear place full of hope, where many people grow. Hoje sento com a minha família para falar sobre essa magia. The underdogs of Massachusetts have pursued us to chase our dreams and live free. A place of freedom and a place of hope. A place I'm proud to call home. Through the dark valleys and the dark nights, I have found a place to ease off during long nights. A place I trust in the community of love is a community that has risen me up. The community we live and love in. A community where people from around the world come together in place. This place is a true wonderland, where a river falls and calmness awaits us. This is a true wonderland. This is Fall River.
Hello, my name is Zayden. I go to Spiro Santo and I'm in 6th grade. My home name is Strength of Battleships. Breathtaking battleships float so strong, appearing in the water, fall through where they belong. They protected our soldiers in time of war. This is the relic of our city that we adore. Lots of people explore what we call the Big Bang. Everybody gets to learn about this history of the Navy. Strong, tall, heartless, saying heroes were stronger than you think. Incredible memories made through bravery and tears. Pride will always help us with our fears. Special pieces like these last for years.
Again, one more time. We will have one more, okay, that is going to show up in video.
Hi, it's Avery. I'm so sorry that I couldn't be there, but I'm so grateful that I was selected as the first place winner. Here's my poem. Where I'm from. This city, it means so much to me. It may not mean as much to you or to your friend, the one who scrunched her face when I told her where I was from. This city, it's full of so much good, but you only choose to see the bad. This city, it tells a story, not just mine, not just my neighbors, but my classmates, the mailman, the school nurse. Most of us have experienced needless judgment and false assumptions, not because of what we do, but because of where we're from. You choose to focus on the wrong places, to look at the wrong statistics. You mentioned that we're poor, but I couldn't disagree more. Poor in what, I ask? Pride, love, joy? Because I know that's not true. We have beautiful architecture, picturesque water views, but more than that, we have hard workers, strong leaders, incredible athletes. No matter what you think, no matter what anyone thinks, the city, it's special. So when I'm asked where I'm from, I proudly say, Fall River.
And we are going to conclude with Professor Nesimo giving us, apanhado, what happened here today. So meaning he's going to conclude and giving him his opinion about all this event, all this Poesia celebration.
I'll be brief. I was telling a story before coming here this morning. Someone asked the professor, don't you get upset when giving a lecture and people start looking at the watch? And he said, no, that's okay, it's normal, people do this all the time. I always start to get worried when people do this. So I'll be very brief. This was one earlier this morning I said I remember in 1970 speaking Portuguese, suddenly speaking to a friend told me, speak lower so people don't know your Portuguese. A long way. 1976, bicentennial of Fall River. The Fall River Herald News published a special issue of the centennial celebrating the ethnic communities, ethnic groups of Fall River. It wrote an article about each one of them, but did not include the Portuguese. We organized a march in front of the newspaper, we protested, etc. But that's how far we have come. Now we have today. I received quite a few emails. The news went out and said, Portuguese Poetry Festival from Lisbon, Portugal. This was, what is this? What's happening? Well, we've come a long way, but this was all thanks to Francine and Patrick. Francine came to me, Mike Buzovich told her to get in touch with me. I gave her a whole bunch of information books because we started publishing translations of Chuck Monteiro, the CBD in 1983. I remember one day during one event in Fall River, about 30 years ago, the only people there were George Monteiro, myself, and the person at the store. Nobody else. So we've come a long way. Francine says this is going to be an annual event. It's wonderful. We could have more people, but we can spread the word. This is great. Celebrating. We talk about the humanities, we talk about literature. What's poetry? Well, poetry has a great way of uniting us. Poets can say a lot of things that we all feel that we're never able to put in such a beautiful way like they do and like we've heard here. So thanks to the organizers. It takes a lot of work to put this all together. Thanks to the participants. And I told Francine, you should be the one to do the policy because you were the one who organized all this. And she backed me. She gave me reasons that don't make any sense. But I obey my wife at home. I obey women outside. Because we haven't talked, we haven't closed. Thank you for being here. Let's go back to the, let's go now.
Well, Francine to say a few words now. Yes.
No, women, nowadays women do not obey.
Is that so? Well, again, thank you, muito obrigada. And we still have, some beverages and some Portuguese food out there. Again, thank you so much for coming, and let's celebrate the first Poesia. Thank you. Obrigada.